Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Confident Hypnotherapist. And this week I have the absolutely incredible Freddy Jacquin joining me. Now, Freddy, if you haven't heard of Freddy, I don't know where you've been. I mean, Freddy is the creator of the Arrow Technique. He's written the most incredible book, Hypnotherapy, which I must say I've listened to on public transport way too many times, I think. And on top of that, he's the co-creator of the Jacquin Hypnosis Academy. Thank you so much for joining me, Freddy.
Well, yeah, thanks for inviting me, Lawrence. It's great to be here and share what I know.
I'm curious to know, what was the life events that brought you to hypnosis in the first place?
Curiosity, pure curiosity. I just want to know how it worked. And I'd been living in America for a few months, came back. I'd sold a business before I left, came back. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I just saw an advert in the paper. This is back in the early 1990s. Advertising. It was a thing called Successful Hypnotherapy. So I had some time and a bit of money, so I thought I'd go and do it. It was a week course by a company called the AHIH, which is the Association of Hypnoanalysts, I think it was called, International Hypnoanalysts. So it was all about kind of the old Freudian way of laying someone on a couch and taking them back through all life, which I now know to be a very poor way of doing it, to be honest with you. But it got me into it. It got me interested. And the first person I worked on was my son, Dean, who's Anthony's older brother. And I went back and like you do, I said, no, I've been so he went, oh, yeah, so you're a hypnotist now, are you? A week ago I wasn't, and now I am. So anyway, so he said, so I hypnotized him he wanted to lose some weight. So I hypnotized him. And all the way through it, I swear to God, he was laying on his settee going, just laughing all the way through it. So and then he went, well, that was a waste of money, wasn't it? Because I haven't been hypnotized, and that was my first kind of person I worked with. Yeah, he lost the 2 stone he wanted to lose. He didn't eat bread or potatoes for years afterwards. Still don't believe he's been hypnotized, but he still lost the weight. So it got me curious and it got me interested. And then because of the kind of person I am, I then started to read. And I started to read about Erickson. And his way of working just appealed to me. It was kind of off the wall. It wasn't the old style therapy, the way he spoke, the way he worked. And it just kind of suited me. And then I got into it. And at the time, I had no intention of being a hypnotherapist, but I just thought I loved this. And why would I want to do anything else? So that got me into it. And kind of the rest is history. It occurred to me that I could hypnotize. Can I hypnotize more than one person? At that point in time, the early 90s, it was kind of unheard of. So I started hypnotizing 2 or 3 people. And then I just thought, I can hypnotize 2, I can hypnotize 200. So then I started doing this mass groups all around the country for quitting smoking and weight loss. In 2006, I saw just under 5,000 people for smoking alone in 1 year. Yeah, in just 1 year, in groups of 200 people at a time. So, and over the period of time I've been doing this, as you know, I travel with my son Anthony. We travel all over the world. We've trained thousands of people on 5 different continents, and in between all that, I've seen 35,000 clients, and I love it. And I can't ever see a time when I wouldn't want to do it. As I say, the joy of it is if they can wheel me into a room and I can speak, I can still do this work. And that's the joy of it.
Where do you think remarkable confidence comes from? I'm struck by when you said, if I can hypnotize 2 people, I can hypnotize 200. And yet there are so many people out there that almost feel like they need even more proof in their ability to be able to recognize that they can hypnotize someone.
Well, I had this question asked from Melissa Tears. She interviewed me after one of the London conferences, and she said, after I'd been on stage and I did my thing, and she said, how much of what you do is about your confidence? And I maybe I shouldn't have said it, but what the words came out of my mouth were, it's not about confidence, it's about not giving a shit ability. Sort of like a not give a shit ability. I want to do my best. I love what I do. I believe in what I do. And some people are going to get me and some people aren't. And if I worry about the people that don't get me, I'm not going to do anything. But I know when I first did the first group for quit smoking, I did, it was 70 people in the room. And this is back in the late 1990s. No one else was doing it, and 70 people turned up. And so I guaranteed it. So I said, if you don't quit, I won't charge you. And 3 people rang up the day or a couple of days later. So I started smoking again. So I sent their money back. And for the next 2 weeks, I am worrying about why those 3 people didn't quit. What did I do wrong? Why didn't they quit? And then I realized that there's 67 people who did quit. And we can focus because we're human and we're working with human beings. Like my mum would say, there is human beings, is, how long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
Because there's no end to it. So we can focus on the times when we don't get a result, and that can make us feel a certain way. I believe that I do my best. The majority of people are going to get a result. If I focus on those ones who don't, then I'm going to feel really pretty bad about myself. And I will tell all of my students the same thing. When you walk into a hypnotic situation, you need to believe this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to believe that with every kind of sense you've got. Because even though there's a part of your brain that knows you're not going to get 100% results, if you act as if it's going to happen, you're going to get more results for more people than if you go in thinking, well, I hope it's going to work. I'm going to do my best and try my hardest. And with a bit of luck, the wind behind us, you might get a result. That's, and even though I know I'm not going to get 100% results, I am going to get better results for more people if I act as if it's going to happen.
Mm.
And then it was an Erickson who said it. He said, if you can pretend to be anything, then become it. So even if you don't feel it to start off with, if you act confident, if you just go, I'm just going to act or pretend, we're hypnotists. So what you might as well hypnotize yourself into saying, I am totally confident.
Yeah.
And then you go into it. And after a period of time, you become it. Some years ago, I've got my son Anthony, and I've got his older brother. He's 49, but my 2 young boys are teenagers. Well, one's just turned 20, the other one's 17. And years ago, I was saying to my who's now 20, he must have been 10 or 11. I said, "You're acting like an idiot." He said, "But I'm not an idiot." I said, "I know you're not an idiot." I said, "I think you're brilliant." I said, "But you're acting like an idiot. So the people who don't know you, what are they going to think?" He said, "They're going to think I'm an idiot." You can pretend to be anything, then become it. And I would say to everybody, even if you don't feel it, go out and act it. And one of the things we teach on our courses, and I know you're doing some work with us, and I say it's as hard to learn as the techniques, and it's this. And again, it's an Erickson saying. I wish it was mine because it's the most powerful saying ever. And it came from he'd been called in to see this guy who was dying of cancer, and he'd had cancer of the jaw and the face. This guy was in agony, and he only had a few months to live. So they called Erickson. They could give him more morphine, but he said he wanted to see the last few months out, still being able to speak to his family. So he didn't want to be comatose. He wanted to be able to communicate. So they called Erickson in, and Erickson worked with him, and he eliminated this pain this guy was in. So someone came up to Erickson afterwards, and they said, "Did you know you could do that?" And these were Erickson's words. I wish they were my words. He said, "I had my doubts, but what I had no doubt about was I could keep my doubts to myself."
Mm.
And I teach all of my students to do the same thing, because we are going to doubt. Is this person bright enough? Are they going to get it? All that kind of stuff. But what you must have no doubt about is you can keep your doubts to yourself.
I actually remember you saying that at the end of the very first class. You actually said, you have to learn to be able to keep your doubts to yourself. And I have my notebook, which I keep beside me when I'm doing training. And I actually wrote that line down, and I actually have it here as part of the question, being that it really struck me, that line. And I was like, you have to learn to keep your doubts to yourself. And I wondered, what kind of strategies have you used in the past to push those doubts aside so that they don't get in the way?
It's acting.
Yeah.
Because you're not always going to feel it.
Mm.
What I'm saying is we have to be able to act as if we have no doubts.
Mm.
We have to be able to do, because you're not going to feel it all the time. But then, and it's often you're not going to feel it. We're human beings. We have our doubts about what we do. We have our doubts about ourselves. But in a hypnotic situation, you must learn to keep those doubts to yourself, because you're not going to get a result. Because this is how it works. If I say to you, if you know I'm a hypnotist, and I say to you in a moment, Lawrence, I'm going to come over and put my finger on your head. And when my finger touches your head, you're going to go into a deep state of hypnosis. If for a moment you even wonder whether that's going to happen, that is going to happen. If I say it with enough congruency and enough conviction, as if there is no doubt in my mind, in a moment I'm going to come over, I'm going to put my finger on your head, and when I touch your head, your eyes will close, you're going to go into a deep state of hypnosis. Then it will happen. If I say in a moment, I'm going to come over, I'm going to try and put you into a trance. I'm going to put my finger in it with a bit of luck. It might put you into trance. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And yet, so, when I do, and I say, when, Anthony, for years, he used to walk out of the room when I said, I'm going to help you out of this pain. And he said, don't just say, it's going to be gone forever. Don't say it's going to happen. I said, and then he'd go out because he was scared I was going to get egg on my face. And then he'd come back in and the person with the bad leg was stomping his foot on the ground, no pain. And over the years, he's got to know that, this absolutely works. But part of it is your attitude. I mean, you've done the arrow technique with me. And when we say, in a moment, the pain will be gone. In the same way as we say, tomorrow the sun will come up. Exactly the same tone of voice. And is that going to be true all the time? Absolutely not. But it's going to be true more of the time because of your attitude. And you see me work, and it is fearless because even if I fail, no one died. I see it. I say your hands are stuck together and they go, no, they're not. Oh, okay, let's move on. It's not the end of the world. And so, but most people fear it. They fear that.
Yeah, that fear of failure that goes on.
And I don't know whether I've said it to you, but I read this book because I'm kind of still into seeing how good I can get my body. And for an old, I don't even have grandchildren now. I've got grand adults. My youngest grandchild is 18. The oldest one's 26. And really, I could sit in a chair and I could grow a long white beard, wear a scabby old jumper, smoke an old pipe. No one's going to say anything, but I am vain. So I still want to look good. And so I try and keep my body as good as it can be. And some years ago, I was reading a book called The 4-Hour Body by a guy called Tim Ferriss. It's a great book. But one of the things he says in it, because he wanted to lose a stone of fat and put on a stone of muscle, which is quite a thing. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do myself. But to put on muscle, if you want to grow muscle, not about getting stronger or getting fitter, but if you want to pack muscle on, so grow muscle, you have to work the muscle to failure. Right? So, but when I read that, and I thought, you know what, if we want to grow as a person, if we want to grow as a hypnotherapist, if we want to grow as anything, we have to work that thing to failure. We have to find out where that point is, because it's in that moment of failure that we grow. We can stay in our comfort zone, and 1 billion hypnotherapists do. They don't go for hypno normally because they can fail at it. So they don't ever try it. But once you get past the fear of failure, it's in that moment when you fail that you grow. And I ran a little hypno thing on it the other night because I'm doing this thing for this group I'm running, which is Create the Body, Health and Happiness That You Want group. So I've been running a daily hypnosis at 9 o'clock on it. I did one the other day on the fear of failure. And I said, once you make failure your friend, sounds a strange thing to say, because you should be looking for it. You should be actively looking for that point of failure, because otherwise you're not growing. And so instead of it being afraid of it, look on it as your ally, as something that you're going to use to grow. But most people are scared of it. And it's the biggest fear. People say to me, what is the most common phobia? Is it snakes? Is it spiders? Is it needles? None of that stuff.
It's not.
It's the fear of failure. And one of my favorite quotes, Lawrence, is this. It's a Shakespearean quote. You might have heard me say it before. It's this: our doubts are traitors, and they make us lose that which we oft should win by fearing to attempt. Our doubts are traitors. It's my favorite quote of all time. Our doubts are traitors. They make us lose that which we oft should win by fearing to attempt. How many things could we have achieved in our life if we'd just been a bit more fearless? If we just asked that girl out instead of thinking, oh, well, I wonder if. What could we have achieved in our business if we just put a bit more belief into it? But we're scared of failing. And once we get past that, once we get past the the concern about what other people think of us.
Yeah.
Once we get past that and the fear of failure, then everything's open to you. So whether it's confidence or whether it's just not a not give a shit ability, I don't know. But either way, you've seen me on, I know you have seen me on stage. You've seen me present to hundreds of people. And I'm no different, Lawrence, than I am speaking to you.
Mm.
It's no different when I'm talking to my kids, I'm talking to anyone else. It's just my life. This is just easy for me. The techniques we teach are easy. They're not complex. I want everyone to learn how to do hypnosis. I really do. I think you should be teaching it in school. Because I don't think it's complex, but I think it's so powerful.
I agree. And I have to say to you a massive thank you for the Jacquin Academy that you've put together, particularly the diploma. Given that we're getting 2 4-hour classes a month, plus all the other content, at the price that you guys are asking for is, I think, exceedingly generous for a start.
Well, when Anthony first said to me, I'm going to, let's develop this, do this membership thing. We're going to charge $47 a month, or what, £47 a month. I said, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to give everything we've got away. I said, you got to be crazy. It's like 30 years of work. We were selling the Mandel stuff for like $3.95 or whatever, $395.
That, yes.
The Arrow technique, which was $100. My smoking thing was $250, whatever it was. We're going to give it all away for $47. I said, you got to be crazy. He said, no. He said, we'll, and because now we've got this wonderful membership, we've got this community. And it is a community.
Yeah, that is
truly
exactly
is.
It. Mm.
And it keeps us on our toes because we've got to keep giving content. We've got to keep giving value. And that's what we're going to do. And so it keeps us, and you know what I'm like? I love having ideas and developing stuff and teaching it. And so, I'd love to think that I think we're going to do, an Arrow workshop, and then Andy's going to do some impromptu workshop, and then we're going to do the Potent Shrew thing, which is where we teach parents how to use these techniques for their kids. So there's lots coming up, but it's the onus is on us if we want to keep this membership going to give real value, and that's what we intend to do. You see the stuff I do. I wouldn't advise anyone to run a business like I do because it's not a good business model. I just tend to do stuff because I love it. But yeah, so I think maybe that's what comes across, the fact that I just love what I do and I enjoy it. And I'm at home in front of a group of people, which I wasn't to start off with, but now that's where I kind of live in that space. So yeah, I don't know whether it's confidence or just, as I said, not worrying too much about what other people think, doing stuff from your heart, being passionate about it. And as I've said to you, I'm sure I've said it to all of you on the course, I said, instead of thinking how much money can I earn from being a hypnotherapist, just think how many people can I help?
Yeah.
Now, Zig Ziglar said it. If you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. Instead of thinking how much money is in this room, how much money can we earn, how many people can I help? I'm just 4 books off selling 7,000 of my audio books. I looked at it today. It's 4 books off 7,000. I remember when I sold 100, I thought, wow, I've sold 100 of these audio books. And now I'm just close to selling 7,000. And I went to Las Vegas a couple of years ago to the HTL. Anthony booked me this presentation. I hadn't been to Hypno Thoughts Live before. And I'm walking down the concourse and a guy comes up to me. He said, you're Freddy Jacquin? I said, yeah. He said, I bought your book. This is not the audio book, bought the other book. He said, I bought your book. He said, my mum has been in pain for 20 years. He said, I ran your Arrow technique out of your book. He said, and she's free of her pain. Thanks very much. So that was one guy. Now another guy came up to me and he said, you're Freddy Jacquin? I said, yeah. He said, you sound a lot taller than you are, or something like that. Or you're a lot shorter than you sound, one of those two things. So one of those nice things balanced the other one out. But so, yeah, I mean, I love to think that 7,000 people have bought my book, and somewhere in the world, someone's free of fear or pain because of something I have no idea about. So, yeah, I mean, I'm living in a really good space in as much as I love what I do. Working with my son, when we're out of COVID, we can travel all over the world together. It's just good. So maybe whether it's confidence, or whether it's just someone loving what they do. I don't know how it comes across.
Well,
But
the thinking about confidence is that, confident people don't sit around thinking how confident they are. They just get out and do it. And, that's certainly the impression I get from you and your son as well. Is that there's
I
this,
have a great belief in the techniques as well, and
yeah,
the protocols. So it's not like we're selling snake oil that we don't believe in.
mm,
We know that we know that the techniques you've learned from us, you're going to use. There's one guy on a course who's on the course because he saw Derry Cook, who we trained in Melbourne, running it at some place. He said, I was hooked. He said, and he said, I found out who it was. He said, and that's why I'm doing the training. So that's how it goes. It's, but yeah, the techniques work. So why would I not feel confident when I step up and say, in a moment, that pain's going to be gone, or that fear's going to be gone, or
mm,
the need for a cigarette be gone. And I say it, like I said earlier, when I speak to a group of people and I say, in a moment, when we leave here today, the need for a cigarette be gone. Tomorrow, the sun will come up. And it's exactly the same tone of voice. It's exactly the same way. Because I believe, because I know for the majority of those people, if they're there because they want to quit, they're going to quit. I know that.
mm.
And so I can say it. I can say it hand on heart. It probably comes across as confident, but it's just a belief that what we're doing is worth of some value.
Absolutely. If you could go back in time and talk to that version of Freddie back in the early 90s that was starting to learn hypnosis, what advice would this 2020 version of Freddie give that younger version of Freddie?
The same advice I give to all my students.
Mm-hmm.
Do it fearlessly. Act as if you have no doubt. That would be the thing. Act as if you have no doubt this is going to work. Your attitude towards this is immense. Your expectation and your intention. Your expectation is that these are going to be great subjects, and your intention is they're going to get a result. And it's quite a new understanding considering how old I am. So maybe 3 years this is what I've been teaching, and it's an understanding that occurred to me. And it's this: nothing is real. And that sounds stupid because you say, well, a screen in front is real. That's not what I mean. I mean, when we think about our past, it's not exactly as it was because our memory is not 100%.
Exactly.
And even if it was, it's in that void that stretches back to the Big Bang. There's nothing we can do about it. So that's not real. As Annie would say, all memory is constructed. It's not real. Our future hasn't happened yet. It can only be imagined. That's not real. Now, there was this bit of research done, and they put this guy in an MRI scanner, or one of those magnetic MRI things. So they could see what's happening in this guy's brain. And they gave him a simple task, and you might have read this bit of research, but they gave him a task, and all he had to do was press a button in his right hand and his left hand randomly. Whenever he thought about it, just press the button. And these guys were monitoring his brain activity while he was doing that. And so after 5 or 10 minutes looking at this guy's brain activity, they could predict which thumb he was going to press before he pressed it, even though he thought he was doing it as he thought about it. And sometimes that was several seconds. I think it was 15 seconds before he pressed his thumb. His brain had activated that was going to happen. So what they kind of learned from that was that we run a schema for everything. I don't know if you've got a cup on your desk, but if I ask you to pick your cup up, yeah, I could ask you to pick your cup up. You could do that simply. Mm-hmm. But to build a robot, Lawrence, to do that one simple task, to pick that cup up without crushing it, dropping it, even more so to pour it in your mouth without spilling it and put it back on the table would be immense. You need the best mechanics, the best computer people to create a robot to do that one simple task. But the moment I say, can you pick your cup up, your brain would run a complete schema for everything you need to do that before you even move a muscle. It'll have happened out of your conscious awareness, but it will everything you need to do would have been already organized. So let's put it in hypnotic terms. The moment I ask you to do something, the moment you think I'm going to do that, your brain runs an imagination on what's needed to create that outcome. And it's done it in a millisecond. So when I heard that bit of research, it occurred to me, I can't do anything. Pick a cup up, speak to you for the first time, present to 1,000 people without my brain running to an outcome. Now, generally, for most of us, until you get past the fear of failure and the fear of what other people think, for most of us, because we want to protect ourselves, we think about the worst case scenario. So especially if you're going to present or do something new. And so your brain will run to everything that could possibly happen. What if I trip up the stage? What if I forget what I'm saying? What if I go red? What if I stumble? All that kind of stuff. And so, but at this point in time, it's just your imagination, even though it's a negative imagination. So once I understood this, I understand I can't do anything without my brain running an imagination on it. But I have to believe that I have control of my imagination. So now when I step up to hypnotize someone, or I step up to hypnotize a room full of people, this is what I think. I think when I go into doing a presentation, I think they're all going to be friendlies. They're going to love what I've got to say, and we're going to have a great time together. So I run that imagination in my brain, and I step on the stage, and it's different. And generally, that is what happens, because I don't spend 2 weeks beforehand worrying about things that could go wrong. I just assume, because I know it's just my imagination. My son Dean, he's Anthony's brother. He's 49 years old. A few years back, he said to me, he said, "Dad," he said, Mel, that's his wife. He said, she and I, we've thought about it, and if we just tweak our mortgage, I can pay my mortgage off by the time I'm 50. In the very next breath, he said, but then what if the people I subcontract off decide not to use subcontractors? And he's got his own business. He's had this business since he was 20, right? So he said, well, what happens if they decide not to use subcontractors? So I said, how long have you been subcontracted off them? He went 20 years. I said, when's the last day you had a day out of work? He said, I've never been out of work. So I said, well, you can imagine, not doing that work or that happening. Or you can imagine paying off your mortgage at 50 and living in £1 million house with no mortgage. Which one of those empower you? Because at this point in time, neither of them are real. So you might as well imagine the best outcome. Either way, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But how you approach it, how you act, and the results are probably going to be completely different. Once we recognize that the stuff that we're being anxious about, the stuff we're worrying about, the stuff that's keeping us up at night, is just our imagination. If it's out there in the future, the thing you're worrying about, it's just our imagination. And you can just imagine it differently. That's how stupid this thing is. Mm-hmm. We've done the rewind technique.
Yeah.
What you're saying is imagine it differently. And your brain goes, okay, I'll imagine it differently. Now I can't feel the same way about it. It's no more complex than that. Imagine it differently. Or better still, stop imagining it. People say it can't be that easy. Of course it is. Stop imagining it because it's not real. Or imagine it differently. So when it comes to things like confidence, you might as well imagine the best outcome and just go into it. And now, I don't know, it was today we were teaching anchoring. Anchor a feeling of total confidence. We have the technology, we have the tools, psychological tools to do it. As I said to you, when we were teaching anchoring, I said, I've got confidence in my hand, and I've got fearlessness in my hand, and I've got determination. And I can't remember the last time I needed it, but I'm sure there have been times in the past when I thought, I'm walking onto the stage and I need to feel confident. I can trigger that feeling. You saw it happening today. I mean, it's amazing. And it's not a difficult thing to teach people. But why would you not install that anchor for yourself? Or get some other hypnotherapist to do it for you?
Absolutely.
Until it becomes who you are. You can pretend to be anything, then become it.
I think that certainly helps to, particularly thinking back to that first class again. I remember Anthony saying, to act as if as well, and focusing on that mindset of being the hypnotherapist when you walk into the room. And I think a lot of the points you've raised, they've really helped clarify exactly what it is to be able to do that. To be able to sit down for a moment and to really get a good idea about what it is to be the hypnotherapist for you personally.
I mean, it's not complex, is it? I don't know whether we've done this before, but again, let me show you. So, who are the most important people in your life, Lawrence?
Was most important people in my life? My family, my partner, my cat.
Okay. Right, do this for me. Put your arm out in front of you like this, and look at me in the camera. Think about your cat. Think about your partner. Think about the people you love that love you, and see those faces, feel that love right now. And as you feel that love, I want you to notice that arm's hanging all by itself. Imagine there's nothing you can do about that now. When you realize there's nothing you can do about it, I want you to try and get it down and find you cannot. I do not want you to pretend, Lawrence. I want you to push as hard as you can, find it goes even higher. Put some effort in. Come on, you're a strong man. Do not pretend. Push even harder. Harder you try and get it down, the higher it's going to go. But are you hypnotized? Try even harder. Find it goes even higher. Something strange is going to happen. I'm going to click my fingers and you're going to be stuck, glued to that chair. Imagine that's happened now. Imagine you're glued in that chair. And when you realize you're glued in that chair, there's nothing you can do about it. I want you to try and stand up and find you can't stand up. Put some effort in, Lawrence. Come on. Are you hypnotized? Are you in a trance? Why can't you stand up? It's ridiculous. I'm going to click my fingers. Everything's going to go back to normal. And of course you stand up. Of course your arm can go down.
Yeah, you can definitely notice that. Ooh,
I mean, it's crazy. For me, it's not complex anymore. But what would stop other people doing that on an interview? What would stop them doing it or even attempting it is the fear of failure. What if you'd put your arm down? What if you stood up? Now, most people say, well, what would happen? How would I feel? Well, how would I feel? Is it, no one died. So it's the only thing that stops people doing the things that I do, things that people like Mandel do, and all these, some other great hypnotists in the world, because they do it fearlessly. And they don't, and they're unafraid of what other people think. And that is the difference. It's not skills. It's not skills. It's an attitude.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say about confidence.
One last question for you. If you can imagine, we talked about the version of you now going back and giving advice to you starting out. The opposite of that, if we were going to the future and we were to talk to 2030 version of Freddy, what advice do you think you would have coming back to speak to the 2020 version of you now?
What, 2030 version?
Mm.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, I'll probably have to dig him up, to be honest with you.
I don't know. You come across as being unstoppable, Freddy.
I would just say to if I was out in the future, I'd say just keep enjoying it. Just keep doing it and just love it. Someone once said, what do you want written on your gravestone? Some of those things online or whatever it was. What do you want written on? And I just want this written on it. Lived it, loved it.
Yeah.
That'll do me on my tombstone. Lived it, loved it. And I love this stuff. I hope that I've got another 2 books in my mind I want to write. One's a fantasy book but I believe I've got other stuff to do yet. But I'm not doing anything I don't enjoy. I know I'm old and I know I'm a pensioner. And so, I've got a pension and I don't spend any money. I mean, I live in a little seaside town here. I don't drink. I play poker on a Thursday when COVID's out of the way. Cost me a tenner and a guy gives you pie and chips. So I'm not exactly a high roller when it comes to poker. But, so where can I spend my money? It's just about enjoying my life. It's about feeling that other people are enjoying it. And that's what I want to do. So if I was my 2030, would say to my 2020 self, just keep enjoying it. Keep loving it. That's what I would say. So
I have to say to anyone watching, and to you particularly, I've had people ask me recently, what's the best way to learn hypnosis in this COVID world? And I've told them without hesitation, without doubt, that the Jacquin Hypnosis Academy is absolutely the best place to learn hypnosis right now. Because I have to say, the amount of prac that you offer both during the classes, plus that community you were talking about, that whole buddy idea is just superb. And I'm seeing people who are just learning, who are literally transforming through this course and because of this course. So
well, the thing is, we've got a mix of abilities. We've got people like yourself who've been doing this for a long while,
exactly.
and we've got newbies. And so, you know, that's something you don't normally get. You have an opportunity, because if it's a new technique for you, you have an opportunity to practice on someone with the skills you've got right now. But the person who's not got those skills are learning from someone who has, and that's giving them confidence. And so when we used to run this live, and I'm assuming we might still do it live at some point, it was a 5-day intensive course, and people go off, you know, and no one to practice with. Now it's 6 months. And if we used to run courses where maybe 40, 50 people, when we went to Brazil, it's 150 people in a class. And of course, the people at the back, if you're demonstrating something on stage, they're kind of looking. We do any demonstration now, every single person on Zoom's got a front row seat. They can see everything that's going on. That's the joy of it. It's, you know, you're not sitting at the back, you're not unable to hear. And once you've done this for a while, it becomes like normal. It doesn't feel like I'm speaking to you thousands of miles away. It just becomes what we do. I just think it's a great medium, and we're lucky to have it at this point in time when this pandemic's on. Otherwise, most of us would be stuffed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how many people had their own limiting beliefs about technology when this pandemic hit. Yeah. Some of those same people are now saying they're not going back to face at all. They're so happy online. It's revolutionized.
Well, you're not geographically strapped in any way. You know, last week I worked with someone in Chicago, and I worked with someone in Australia, and someone in New Zealand, or wherever it might be. And you're not strapped. You're not geographically strapped. Can you get to me? Even when we're running our training courses, like I'll run courses with other people, Laurie Hammond and Marina Costina. I'm going to be running courses with other people on different subjects. And before, this year, July, Laurie and I have had a thing. It's supposed to be at Heathrow. So Laurie had to fly into England. The people who had to fly booked hotels. I'd have had to book a hotel. In fact, I did. Luckily, I got my money back. You know, so all of that money was all spent on traveling, accommodation, and rooms. Now we can do it online. People don't have to travel. I know it's still nice to work face to face, and I'm hoping it's going to come back to that, and we're going to do it. It's nice to meet people. It's nice to meet people that we've been talking to online. But this is also a great way, this medium we've got now. And I just think it's, you know, we're lucky to be living in an era where we've got this technology. And I just think it's great. Yeah.
Freddie, thank you so much for your time. I know it's late where you are at the moment.
It's great. I like, as you know, starting me up one thing, shutting me up something else. I can talk about this stuff forever. And I love it, you know, and I'm really, you know, thankful that you asked me to do this. It's really good of you. I appreciate it.
No problem. You have a wonderful night. Everyone who's watching, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, that'd be great. And thanks again. I look forward to working with you in the future as well. We continue down this path together. That'd be great.
Excellent. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Take care now.